Good evening, everyone. I call to order the regular meeting of the Victoria City Council. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll start this evening with announcements. The City Council will hold its first budget workshop of the year on Monday, June 26th at 5:30 p.m. That's Monday, June 26th at 5:30 p.m. During the workshop, Council will discuss the preliminary 2024 budget and receive an update from staff on progress related to the Council's previously approved Federal American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, expenditures. All meetings of the City Council are open to the public and held in the Council chambers at City Hall, unless otherwise noted. If you're interested in speaking at the Council meeting, we encourage you to contact our City Clerk for more information. In other announcements, the City Council will recognize the city's volunteers and outgoing Citizen Advisory Board members, and will also present the 2023 Community Builder Award during the annual Volunteer Appreciation event. This special event will begin at 5 p.m. on Monday, June 12th, and will be at Bayfront Park in downtown Victoria. There is there's one proclamation this evening, which I will read from the dais, and it is a proclamation recognizing May 21st through 27th as National Public Works Week. Whereas Public Works provides services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the City of Victoria. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of all public work employees who are responsible for the planning, improving, and protecting our city's stormwater management system, construction projects, streets, public buildings, parks, trails, and other structures and facilities essential for our residents. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens and leaders in Victoria to gain knowledge and maintain ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works, first responders, and public work programs. I, therefore, the mayor and council members of the City of Victoria do hereby proclaim the week of May 21st through 27th, 2023 as National Public Works Week. And we thank all of our public works workers in the City of Victoria. Our next order of business is to adopt the final agenda. Council, can I get a motion to adopt the final agenda?
Motion to adopt the final agenda.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next agenda, which is open forum, it's an opportunity for anyone to address the council on an item that's not on the agenda and not in application form that will be coming to the council at a future date. Please do not expect action from the council this evening regarding your comments. Council members may ask clarifying questions, but open forum is not intended to be a back and forth discussion. We have one individual who's registered to speak in advance, Mr. Wiggin. That must be you. Please step up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and proceed with your comments.
Appreciate it. Thank you. My name is Stephen Wiggin. My family and I, we live at 1585 Fox Hunt Way near the elementary school. And I wanted to share a little bit about the skate park relocation to Lions Park. I'm super proud of this community to value skateboarding and to have a place for these kids to go skate. Myself, I've been skating for 20 years. I've been coaching action sports for 10 plus years, and most recently volunteering with JSAW and Help Board Shop. It's in Bloomington. It's run by Johnny Nelson and the staff there. We do faith-based outreach and community service. And through that, I've had a lot of opportunities over the last year to visit some of the skate parks, in Minneapolis and St. Paul and Eden Prairie. I wanted to give you a little bit of background about a lot of the skate parks in our communities. Around the early 2000s, it's when a lot of these skate parks were built. We call them prefab. There was a company in Duluth called True Ride that built a lot of these skate parks. And I think the decision that, community members and board members had to make is, they had a budget in front of them. They had these expensive skate parks, and then they also had to put them on something, right? So they spent a big amount of the money on the budget on the skate park, and then went with like the minimally viable skate surface. And so as those skate parks aged, we felt it the most in everything between the ramps. As that asphalt started to erode away, it got bumpier and bumpier, and there were skate parks currently like Chanhassen that's almost unskateable, or until last year, Chaska, they just resurfaced, but that asphalt was 20 years old and completely unskateable. It was a dangerous park. And then I have a friend, Johnny, who's currently helping with the Glen Lake Park. They're refabbing that, and that they actually had heavy ramps on top of the asphalt there, where the ramps had sunk into the asphalt like an inch to an inch and a half, and that became dangerous. And so they're working through different measures right now to relocate the park and build it on a different surface. A few of our adjacent communities have addressed, kind of like these late stage skate park in different ways. Eden Prairie and Carver and Burnsville, they built brand new concrete parks on concrete pads. There's Chanhassen that hasn't yet done anything, but they have old skate park on old asphalt. And then there's Chaska that had old ramps on an old site, and they chose to resurface. And then Shakopee, when they moved theirs, they did something kind of unique, is that they kind of future-proofed. So they built this very expensive ice arena, and in the meantime, they built the concrete pad, they put the old ramps on it. And then at the end of the ramp's useful life, they probably had 5, 6, 7 years left in those ramps. They phased those out and then did concrete on top of the concrete pad that they had already built. I've thought a lot about, what we did, with the limited, $40,000 that was approved for the asphalt pad. And I think, while I love skating concrete, I think it really is probably the economic solution for our community with the ramps that we have and the useful life that's probably left in those ramps. The location's gonna be awesome. And the asphalt surface should be totally adequate for the useful life of the ramps. In the future, if the city of Victoria looks to build a new skate park, I would definitely pay attention to everything between the ramps too. A concrete pad is just as important as the ramps. And then I was over at Help Board Shop today. I was sharing a little bit with Johnny Nelson, and I wanted to ask, maybe if we could take a look at the measurements and measuring the ramps and put that in front of some expert eyes, just so that we get the placement of our ramps right on the current planned site.
Okay. I'll tell you what, Mr. Wiggin, right?
Yeah.
Will you leave your name with Dana over here, our
Totally.
city manager, and she will be in touch with you.
Perfect. Thank
All
you,
right.
Deborah.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right. Is there anyone else here who would like to address the council this evening? All right. Seeing no one, we'll now move on to our next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine, administrative, and do not require deliberation or are housekeeping items that are required by law. Consent agenda items are approved with one vote unless someone requests an item to be considered separately. Dana's tied up back there, but I do know she is going to pull consent agenda items 5.4 and 5.5 for separate discussion and vote. Council, are there any items that you would like to pull for separate discussion and vote? And is there anyone in the audience that would like an item pulled for separate discussion and vote? All right, seeing no one, clerk, will you please let the record reflect that item 5.4 and 5.5 have been pulled for further discussion? And then I will have a motion for the balance of the consent agenda, please.
I'll make a motion for the balance of the consent agenda.
I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Now on to item 5.4, which was removed from the consent agenda for a separate discussion and vote. Ms. Hardy, will you please walk us through that?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So item 5.4 is the SCADA and programmable logic controller upgrade project. The reason that I have pulled this is not because it's controversial. However, we had, thank you to a resident who pointed out that there was some technical glitches happening on our agenda packet. And so I just wanted to draw attention that this was one of the items that was a victim of that technical glitch. So in the agenda report, and thank you, Alyssa, for opening that, there are 12 attachments. Those 12 attachments somehow converted to be private and not public. And so we have, late this afternoon, made that change. We're not sure how that happened. When we publish the packet, it takes everything, is supposed to take everything and make everything from private to public at that time. So for some reason, it did not do that. We don't know why it didn't do that, but we've made that correction. And so I just wanted to point out for the record that that information was submitted along with that report, and that there are the quotes available for anybody who would like to see that.
Perfect. Thank you. Council, any comments or discussion on item 5.4? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion, please.
Motion to approve the contract provided by Total Control Systems, Inc. out of Stanchfield, Minnesota for the amount of $91,459.
Thank you. We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 5.5, our Downtown West First Edition. Ms. Hardy, this one is yours as well.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So similarly, this was not a technical glitch. However, we did notice, and again, we really appreciate that our residents are paying attention. So this was brought to our attention by one of our residents that the agreement, the purchase agreement was there, but the appended amendment that is up for your consideration was not attached. So I thought for the record, it would be important just to walk the council and our public through a brief summary of what the amended purchase agreement will be doing. And so for your consideration, council, this evening, there are three what we're referring to as housekeeping items for the council to consider as an amended purchase agreement for the Downtown West project. That project was approved in fall of last year. The purchase agreement signed in fall, the final plat also approved in fall. Part of that project not only includes the city's a portion of the city's Downtown West area, the 13.5 acres. It also includes, for this particular project, a portion of an adjacent property that is a privately owned property. So that property needs to be closed on first before the city can close on the purchase agreement for this project to go forward. That has not happened yet. And so now that there is a date for that set with the private property owner and the developer, we just want to move our due diligence date from April to July to allow adequate time for that closing to take place. The next housekeeping item has to refer to platting. So when council, you approve a final plat, typically what happens is that we immediately turn around and record that plat. Because there's a few moving pieces to this agreement and this project for that, the closing hasn't yet happened with the private partner or the private property. That needs to happen before we can close. And not suggesting by any means that this is happening, but if for some reason that property didn't close on the private side and the developer were not to move forward with the project, we wouldn't want to have that final plat recorded until that purchase agreement is done. So what this other change does is just provide a little bit more protection to the city, where the parties are agreeing that where we would normally go and record that final plat now, that we would just hold that until after the purchase agreement. And then the final change is also something that we just wanted to provide a little bit more, we'll call them protections for the city. Previously, we had not identified a drop dead closing date. And we just put some parameters around that by saying that we expect that November 1st, that everything will be signed, sealed, and delivered. And so those are the brief summary of what those changes, that amended purchase agreement document is designed to do. And I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hardy. Council, questions? All right, seeing none, we just want to emphasize that this project is not in jeopardy. These are just housekeeping items, and that will allow for some additional time that was needed. So with that being said, Council, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt this agenda item that we've just discussed on amending the purchase agreement for.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We're now moving to our regular agenda. The first item this evening is item 6.1. It's a resolution, adoption of a resolution accepting bids and awarding a contract for our 2023 street and drainage improvements. Ms. Guerin, this exciting item is yours.
Great. I am going to keep this short and sweet. We opened bids for the 2023 street and drainage improvement project last Thursday, 2 Thursdays ago. We did receive 8 bids. The low bidder was Kuski Construction, who is also the contractor that's working on the Steiger Lake Lane reconstruction project currently. They did come in below the engineer's estimate with a low bid of $694,480.80. You have in your packet a resolution to award that contract. We have had what we call a pre-construction neighborhood meeting, but once this is awarded and we have a project schedule, we'll start to ramp up our public engagement on the project page with interested members of the public.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Guerin. Council, questions for Ms. Guerin on this topic, on this item? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
A motion to adopt a resolution accepting bids and awarding a contract for the 2023 street and drainage improvements.
We've got a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On to the next item, 6.2, a funding update on the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan. Presenting this evening is our county engineer and county engineer Lyndon Robgent, along with our city engineer Kara Guerin. It looks like Mr. Robgent is going to start us off. Welcome.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Thanks for having me. So I'll do the first slide, Carol will do the rest.
Perfect.
Okay. So yes, thanks for the opportunity. As you know, we worked on the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan a few years ago. Very exciting project with lots of partners, including all cities. Victoria was a big player in that undertaking, and I think we created a pretty good vision for the transportation improvements in the area in and around the Arboretum over the next 20 years.
That's why Kara's taking the rest of them, because the clicker doesn't work.
I turned it on.
Is it on?
The green. Well,
Oh, here we go, hang on. Nope.
nope. It only works when you, now I can't even get this to work. Okay. I think it's probably,
There are gremlins in the building today, apparently.
oh, there we go.
So we can leave it on this slide for a minute. So this is a picture of a proposed causeway bridge over the Lake Minnewaska wetlands. That was part of the study, working with the resource agencies. Now, as you know, the road sits in the wetland, and we are required to lift that out of the wetland. So that's part of the project and probably the most expensive piece. So we'll talk a little bit about that. The scope might change a little bit on that project, given a value engineering study that we've just completed.
Quick question on that.
Sure.
If you back up and go to that, is that a 4-lane bridge or
Yes.
a 2-lane bridge? 4-lane.
4-lane, yes.
Thank you.
Yep, very good question. So we'll give a quick project update. All I can say is things are pretty fluid right now, given the legislative action that has happened and is occurring tonight. My understanding is the Senate has already passed the bonding bill and the House is voting as we speak. So that will update you on what that means to these projects and 82nd Street. I was just going to talk about 5, but I'm also going to talk about 82nd today.
Jump ahead on you, sorry.
So yeah, just a little bit of background just to remind folks about the Arboretum area study that we did. We started in, gosh, it seemed like, was it 2019, pre-COVID?
Was a long time ago.
So it took a couple years to define that vision of all the transportation, all modes, not just highways. We looked at transit, bike ped, safety on the whole corridor to come up with what needs to happen in the next 20 years. We did a very robust public engagement process to get people's opinion on not only on the scope of the projects, but how we could time them. But it is a very complicated study. Next slide. There we go. So this really sums up the results of the study. We'll talk about the red squiggly line in a minute. But we came up with short, medium, and long-term improvements that are needed in and around the Arboretum. You can see where the Arboretum is surrounded by those roadways. So the pink or the salmon color were defined as short-term improvements. Specifically, the biggest one being the Highway 5 expansion from Rolling Acres Road, or west of Rolling Acres Road, Park Cochia, through Minnewaska Parkway, where that new traffic signal is, or it's been there a while now, but as well as a piece of Rolling Acres Road up to Interlaken. So that was defined as the short term, the most pressing project. Midterm is shown in yellow. That includes to the right the Arboretum, the bridge I mentioned, as well as 82nd Street. The rest of Rolling Acres Road up to Highway 7, including an improved intersection at Highway 7. And then the green, long-term. And the reason we did that, so the long-term would be from Park Cochia through downtown to the County Road 11 intersection on the very west side where Dairy Queen is now. And then included the intersection at Highway 41. So the reason why this was split up into so many different projects is basically because of the money. You know, I think the entire corridor, we came up with about a $200 million cost estimate to get all these projects accomplished. And the way the funding works in our region is you can't get that much money all at once. You just have to find grants, which we're really good at. We go after every grant you can imagine, whether there's a federal, MnDOT grants, legislative action, you name it, we apply for everything. So, but the way it works is usually you can't get more than 7 to 10 million at a time. So we needed to put these in chunks. Obviously, you can see that on Highway 5 in particular, that's a huge impact. If you want to build that roadway over 20 years, you're impacting the community over and over and over again. So when we completed the study, we decided with our partners that we would love to accelerate as many of these projects as possible to try to prevent long-term disruption in the community. Obviously, with Highway 5 being a 2-laner, any road work you do on that, you're probably going to have to close it. It's not certain, but it's very likely, which means you're closing the road multiple years, even when you're tying into another project you just built. So pretty disruptive. So our vision was, is there a way we can accelerate this? So the red part is really our refined vision, the red line around. We want to try to get that project on Highway 5 and Rolling Acres Road, ideally done in one shot. That's the goal. So it's a pretty lofty goal. That's about $117 million with inflation. So the goal would be, if we can find the funding, we'd want to complete all of that by 2026 or 2027. Start construction late 25, finish in early 27. And then you've got 82nd Street being a very important reliever route to Highway 5, or will be. If Highway 5 is closed, traffic will be everywhere. Highway 7, as you know, is a 2-lane road. There's some serious safety issues on Highway 7. If you heard, there's been a road safety audit done there. There's a vision for Highway 7 to add some improved intersections, roundabouts, to make that safer. But it won't add any mobility to the corridor. So if you shut down 5, every street in the area is going to be impacted. So we thought if we could get 82nd paved prior to Highway 5 having to be closed, that would allow a little relief during construction. So we want to accelerate 82nd as well. In fact, we want to move 82nd into the pink category as well. So that would be, try to get that built prior to 2025, or finish it in 25 before we close Highway 5, which would probably be, if everything goes to plan, 2026, Highway 5 would be closed. So can we get 82nd done? So, long story short, tremendous amount of work to do. The study ended here, and now we're into preliminary design. We did get a grant from Congressman Phillips, an earmark in 2021 to start work on doing the engineering on the big corridor. That was a $2 million grant, so that was much appreciated. And through the contracting process with the state, it took 9 months to get the contract, so we're just getting going. So timing is good, but we're already under the gun. We've taken out a lot of the float in the schedule to meet the construction deadline for 5. Because you remember Highway 5, the first piece around Rolling Acres, we already have a federal grant for that has a sunset date. So we have to get that under construction in 25 in order to keep that 10 million we got through the Met Council. So that's kind of the linchpin of the whole timing. So we're moving, but we'll see what happens. Little bit of background, we're not the only ones doing work. Obviously you guys are doing work on your streets. The Arboretum is relocating their entrance. They have some private funding. They've secured all the funding to do this project. So they're moving their main entrance from where it is today to line up with Minnewaska Parkway. So that'll be a 4-way traffic signal.
Lyndon, when do they plan to have that done? Do you know?
Yes, they will be starting, they'll get the grading done on that roadway.
Yep.
It'll be a gravel road in 2024.
Okay.
But they won't connect until our project is happening. So the connection will happen with the Highway 5 construction.
Got it.
But they got lots of, they're moving the Apple House. They got a lot of development going on as well. That's going to happen concurrently. So tons of activity in the area over the next several years. But a really exciting project for them. So back to the focus area. So we put this in blue, that the Highway 5 vision. We put 114 million, but with inflation, that's already higher. So that's the extent of our current design project. So we go all the way from Commercial Street or 80th all the way to Century Boulevard on the east. And Rolling Acres Road will be south of the intersection up to Interlochen, as I mentioned. So that's the design that will start in June, and we'll start the public process with the residents in the community on that shortly thereafter. Probably have an open house in the summer, and the project will go pretty quickly. In green, we added the Downtown West. That's a new, again, things move very fast. We also got a federal grant for a roundabout at 11 and 5. So again, that sets a deadline there. So we're working with Kara and you guys on figuring out what the vision is for that part of Highway 5 with your development plan. Is there a way we can build that all together? So we do have a cost range there, 6.4 to 8.5. Depends on the extent of the work on Highway 5. Worst case, the minimum we'll do is build the intersection and tie it down. But if we can get the Highway 5 part built to the vision that the city wants and that MnDOT will accept, we'll do that at the same time. And we also have a project on County Road 11 all the way up to the Kings Point roundabout. That'll happen at the same time, separate project. So there's a lot of work to do there as well. But I think, have we selected a consultant for that?
We're getting close.
We're getting close. So that will be concurrently with the rest of Highway 5. So you can see there's a little gap in the middle, the downtown area. We'll just have to hold off on that for a little while. So then there's County Road 18, as you can see. That's a $23 million project. So it won't be, it will be a 2-lane road, 2-lane paved with trails, a roundabout at Rolling Acres or Bavaria, a bridge over the ravine, a very beautiful corridor. It's beautiful now, but it'll be pretty nice too when we're done. So that's that. We do have a consultant on board, so that'll happen concurrently with Highway 5. We have 2 separate consultants, but they're working together. I don't know if you've met Eric Johnson. I think you have through the study process. He was the project manager for the ATP, and he works for Bolton & Mank. We've hired him as kind of an extension of our staff to manage this whole thing, because we've got other stuff going on too. Highway 212, as you know, is fully funded now. The second piece from Kelowna norward, that's an $80 million project we got to deliver. So our staff are really busy. We want to get that done. Then we've got a big project in Chaska at Engler and 41, huge roundabout. We're building 4 roundabouts on that corridor. That's a 24, 25, so we want to time that. So when that's done, we move over here. These are most of these are MnDOT roads. I don't know why, but they are. Anyway. So they're the most important roads for us. That's why I think, that's just the way it works. So not a lot you can see here. This is the layout, just shows the extent. So the reason I showed this is we did a value engineering study. That's a process if your project is over a certain size. I don't remember the size, but
50 million.
Thank you. You have to bring in a separate team to take a second look at your assumptions, and they go over cost-saving measures on the project. So it's a pretty neat exercise, and it lasted a week. So you present what our vision was, what we did, then they kick you out, and then the consultant team and MnDOT and everybody else gets together, and they come up with some ideas of their own that could save time, make the project better. It's not all about saving money. It's also to come up with something that's functionally better and is better for the community. They look at a wide array of tasks. So with that, they did say that the most cost-effective way, kind of a no-brainer, is that it probably should be closed to build Highway 5. Obviously, the bridge at Lake Minnewaska will be very hard to do under traffic. If you consider building a bridge in stages, not easy to do. So the closure will result in less cost and duration. Remember when we built Highway 5, how long ago was that? Was that 08? 2012? How painful that was? Very painful for everybody. But we decided, I remember that process was quite a debate on whether the road should close, and that allowed the project to get accelerated. And then there'll be a regional detour, so I'm assuming that'll be Highway 7 and 212. So there's a couple things that they highlighted that we should take a look at that's interesting, that wasn't part of our vision. So if you remember when we did the concepts for Rolling Acres Road, again, 2-lane road, trails, an improved crossing at the regional trail. That's an area that I think long-term will be a grade separated crossing, maybe not right away. We had a roundabout concept at Interlaken there, which we think is a good idea. They suggested that the group suggested that we consider another roundabout at Tamarack Trail, which would allow better access for the folks in between those 2 intersections. So that's something that we're going to look into. They talked about a mini roundabout, which allows bigger trucks to just traverse over it, but we're going to take a look at that. Maybe it'll be similar to the one at Interlaken. That's something we'll take a look at. They thought that would be a good traffic calmer and better facilitate U-turns, because there's some folks that would have difficult access with the current concept. So we're going to investigate that further. The bridge, obviously, this is the big ticket item. I think the project from Minnewaska Parkway to 41 is over $40 million, with the bridge being the most expensive part. So this was our concept: span the whole wetland as much as you can. Obviously, that's the easiest but most expensive. But they suggested that maybe we could do some lightweight fill, build a load transfer platform. I'm getting really engineering here. and maybe not build the entire bridge. If we could do part of it on embankment, but at a very constrained footprint, and build a shorter bridge, or maybe two bridges, we could save considerable money. The key is, if you go back to the other slide, Kara, the previous one. The issue, though, is with the resource agencies, we're going to be meeting them really quick. The DNR, the Corps of Engineers, that is a protected water. You're not supposed to touch it. So even you avoid, if you can avoid, they want you to avoid. If you can't avoid, you've got to have a net loss of 0. So our goal would be to try to do the net loss of 0 and see if the resource agencies will allow that. We went through a similar process with the trail that you can see in the background there, but we ended up building $1 million boardwalk to avoid the wetland for that trail. So we'll see where that goes. We're hoping that if there's no net loss with wetlands, we'll be able to build the shorter bridge at a considerably less cost. Could be 6 to 7 million less. But that's a process we've got to go through that involves lots of agencies. So we're going to do that. Let's see what. So that's kind of the highlights of the value engineering study. So now we're moving on to design. The project costs. This is, I call this the sausage map to my commissioners. So we have these 4 big phases. And again, A is fully funded. That's the one we already have the federal regional solicitation grant. The rest of them are not. So if we can get at a minimum A and B done at once, I think that would say we would tie into the 41 intersection as is, but there will be a 4-lane road from 41 west through Rolling Acres Road, Park Cochia. There'll be a signal there, and then it'll go back to 2-lane. So at a minimum, we'd want to do that. If we can get the whole thing done, that's the ideal scenario. In, out, year and a half worth of construction. But so that's what we've been pursuing the funding for. So to date, again, that's a $114 million investment. Construction, of course, is the biggest part of that, nearly $90 million. The funding to date, we've got that $10 million regional solicitation. We got the $2 million for the overpass at 78th Steiger. You remember that? So that's exciting. Mm-hmm. So that's part of that gets you to 12. We got the federal earmark from Phillips. MnDOT 5.8. Part of that is we're hoping that they'll contribute some for construction, but we're going to negotiate with them to do the construction administration. So they will do all the engineering during construction, which is a big cost, but that's not a done deal yet, but we're hopeful they will do that. Federal Protect, that's a new program that we're excited. I know you met with Deb Barber last week or 2 weeks ago to talk about that program.
We did.
And there's a high potential that they will award Carver County $10 million this year through that process. So part of the regional solicitation, there's all kinds of new federal money that came to Minnesota. They basically doubled the budget. They had some carbon reduction money, bridge money, but they also had this protect money, which is more resiliency, protecting roads and bridges in floodplain areas, enhancing wetlands. So it's an IIJA funding source, but they weren't ready to spend the money for whatever reason during the regional solicitation. Now they are. So they looked for projects that were already on the list that didn't get funded. We asked for $10 million anyway for Highway 5, and we didn't get selected. So we were a little annoyed by that because it's a really great project. But now they think that there's some money that we could get, the $10 million we asked for. So we'll know that next month when the Transportation Advisory Board votes on the options. There's 3 options, but the one that is being recommended is to award this project as well as one in Washington County more money. So that gets another 10. Earmark, we had Congressman Emmer visit you guys. We talked to him last Friday too, and this is his second priority on his list. He's got a project in Anoka County too, but that's a very, very sure bet there unless something crazy happens in Washington. That $7 million should be available to us. And the big news is the legislature just acted on the transportation bill. That's the huge finance and policy bill for the whole state that they've been debating for months. I've been away from the office for about a month. But the good news is Senator Coleman and Representative Ream figured out a way at the last minute to get $20 million put into the bill, cash, for Highway 5. So that was a really exciting phone call to get. So now we're really moving. And then the city share, this is still up in the air depending on the schedule. We're gonna have to work with Kara on how your CIP cash flow works. Same with the city of Chaska and Chan. And the Arboretum's got a small share. So that number's still fluid. The county number, that's our sales tax funding that we use. Currently we have 20 million budgeted for this project and just over 4 million of county state aid highway money. That's gas tax funds, basically. That number will probably grow as well, given other projects that get funded. We move the money over here. But currently there's a gap of 29 million. So that's the entire project. So that's pretty amazing. We're 74% funded.
That is awesome, awesome news.
Yeah, like a week ago, we didn't.
Yeah, the one in your packet's like 51% funded. So
Yeah.
since the packet went out last week to today, I have a new one.
Yeah, I'd say a week ago, the 20 million wasn't there, the 7 million, well, we knew about the 10 million wasn't there. So we've got 30 million in the last week, probably. So good news.
Awesome.
But I wanted to bring 82nd into the conversation too, because again, we want to get this project going before Highway 5. We asked for 10 million through the legislature. You guys were awesome. Thanks, Mayor, for coming and testifying several times to the committees. It was a very good project. They took it, this legislature liked it a lot. We had the 2 bonding tours a couple years ago, so it got a lot of momentum. Unfortunately, they only put 3.8 in the bill. Again, Senator Coleman, Representative Ream, they figured out a way to get another 6.2 in there tonight. So I think they're voting on it right now. So if that's true, which I would imagine it would happen, we'll get the 10. So if you remember, the 10 million was for the city's share of the project. So between you guys, Chanhassen and Chaska, that pays your share. The county will put in the balance, which is the 13 million roughly. So excellent news.
Excellent news.
So the bottom line is we're in good shape. The tough thing is we're going to be moving, and we're going to have a lot of interaction with you all and the residents and the businesses in the next couple of years. So this is a schedule that shows each project. The 82nd is on top. The goal is to try to get that one under construction mid-24, so that bottom blue line, and get it finished by the end of 25. The second one is the Downtown West project. That will probably happen concurrently, so we got to figure out how that's going to work. And then the bottom one is the Highway 5. Again, we won't do major impacts on Highway 5 until the other projects are finished. So a lot of work to do to make that happen. We still got to look at all the staging, how the traffic will work, how the closures will impact people. That's a ton of work, but we got a great team working on it, and we appreciate all your support and help. So this shows some of the activities coming up. Again, open house coming soon in the summer. We want to finalize kind of the layout, the geometrics. We need municipal consent from the cities on the project. And then we got to decide. So there's still a decision to be made if we want to go through Highway 41, build that big intersection, or go a little bit further to the west. Is there going to be more money that comes along between now and mid or spring 24? So if we get another grant, we're still applying, it will make that decision for us. But at some point, spring of 24, we've got to say, this is where we're at, this is what we're going to build. So that's a critical timing point for us. So spring 24, anyway, there we go.
Well, we want to say thank you. You have worked really hard for a number of years trying to fund these projects and get these road improvements taken care of. I know that our residents certainly appreciate that. While construction can be painful, we will celebrate that every day because it is much, much needed for capacity improvements. Council, questions for Mr. Robgent and Ms. Guerin?
Just a quick question on your schedule, if you could back that up for just a minute. Yeah, so if I understand what you have here, should we expect somewhere in the late part of third quarter this year that we might be having communications going to residents about how their properties would be affected and what would be the expectations of this project is related to their, they may need to have easements, encroachments, et cetera.
Absolutely. Yeah, the first step is to kind of finalize the concept plan, which will show how wide the construction is, what the impacts are. So then we have open houses and an individual meeting with property owners to show their parcel impacts. So that will happen, it says final design and right-of-way acquisition, but before that, the one before it, the prelim engineering, that's the part where that discussion happens, and then we tweak things to make sure the impacts are as little as possible. So on all three projects, that'll happen concurrently, probably.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Council, anything else? Yeah,
On
Mr.
82nd Street,
Councilmember Rafe.
thank you. On 82nd Street, the construction begins, I think, late '24, I believe.
Yep.
And that's a viable alternative, right, during the closure, right? Because you'll get that done
Yep.
initially beforehand. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
the key is to see the 26 line.
Yep.
Key is we wouldn't shut down Highway 5 until that was open.
got it. That's what my question was.
Yep.
Thank you.
You bet.
Yep.
Terrific. Council, anything else? All right, there's no action needed tonight. It was just informational, so thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
We're happy to celebrate the good news from the legislature.
Yeah.
Hopefully, nothing will change between now and midnight when they adjourn.
Yeah, thanks for your leadership and support.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right. Reports and emerging issues. Ms. Hardy, anything from staff?
None from staff this evening, Madam Mayor.
Council, anything from council this evening?
Not for me, Mayor.
All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We've got a motion. How about a second?
Second?
A motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned.